Good afternoon. Welcome to the Monday, April 8th, 2013 meeting of the board director, to the Board of Social Services meeting. I'd like to take a moment of silent prayer or meditation. Okay. I'd like to have a motion to adopt today's revised agenda.
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Now, also like a motion to adopt the minutes of the...
I move to approve of the minutes as mayor, Mr. Chairman.
motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Again, I'd like to say I really appreciate, I and other board members appreciate the thoroughness of the minutes, and we really appreciate that. Now, we also have a second group of minutes that need to be seconded.
I move to approve of those as mayor, Mr.
I
Chairman.
second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Now we'd like to move on to the status of the agency personnel, and that'll be by Director George Perry.
At the present time, we have 11 vacant positions within the Pitt County Department of Social Services. Positions are either being screened, advertising, or interviewing. We only have 2 positions that are frozen at the present time, and one is in food, one is in adult Medicaid, and the other is family assistance, family Medicaid.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, the county approved for you to hire 8 temporary employees. Have they been hired
Yes.
and are they at work?
They at work.
All right. Are we catching up with what?
We are catching up. We have information in the packet that will talk about what we're doing.
So you're going to bring
Right,
that out
right.
more, numbers that we're
Mr.
behind.
Avery will bring that out more in his presentation.
Okay, that'll be fine then.
Okay. That's really good, because that was something that we had talked about and we were concerned about, and we did go to the county commissioners to get those new hires. So I'd like to have that information available so that we can relay that on. Again, really appreciate this report. Gives us a good idea of where we are personnel-wise. Okay. Next, we're going to go on to the budget amendment. Energy Neighbor Fund, $170. That'll be by Peggy Quinn.
Yes, sir, I'd like to cover them both at the same time.
Okay.
We received $170 from the state for Progress Energy Neighbor Funds to be used to help the Pitt County citizens with heating and cooling needs. In addition, we also received $20,000 from the Greenville Utilities, the donations by the citizens, and there again, that will be used to help citizens of Pitt County with their heating and cooling needs.
Peggy,
Sir.
on that, I take notice, rather, they give money each month.
Right, yes, sir.
What is the total amount of money that they generally give per year, and is it on that? do you know?
To us, Greenville Utilities?
Yes.
I think it varies a little bit, but I know so far this year, they've actually given us about $32,000 so far this year, 32 or 36,000 so far this year.
Hey,
It was about the same last year in that
We've
neighborhood.
never been able to get money from Edgecombe Martin or
No, sir.
Greene County,
The only other place we got money from was Aden, the city of Aden. They gave us $10,000.
and we did apply for them, call up them to see if there were funds were available.
Yes, sir. We sent letters out and asked them, and the only person that responded was Aden, city of
Okay.
Aden.
I guess the thing that really sticks out is that the amount of money that Greenville Utilities are donating to the citizens of Pitt County has been outstanding. From my recollection, no other agency is doing something similar.
Not to us, just the city of Aden has given us $10,000, but no one else.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to all the employees and of Greenville Utilities. We really appreciate this, and we thank you very much, because what it shows is that citizens are concerned about other citizens. I'd like to get a motion regarding these two amendments.
I'd offer a motion that these two amendments be passed as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? All right, next, my name. Public speaking policy is next. Like to just give a little overview of what we're trying to do here. I really appreciate y'all for working on this. What we want to do is to give the citizens of Pitt County the opportunity to talk to us. We hear a lot of things informally. We hear a lot of things as we go about our jobs and while we're out. And what I was thinking, as well as the board, is that maybe there should be something a little formal, a formal vehicle that the citizens of Pitt County can use to address us. So what we've done is we've developed, well, primarily the management team, along with some input from us, have developed a policy. I'd like to get some comments on this and see what people are thinking.
I think it's good, but I'd put a time limit on it. Like, I'm on the airport authority, there's a 3 minutes, the county commissioners are 3 minutes, and we time them, and we enforce that, because if you don't have a time limit, say if you have 7, 8, you're gonna have, your meeting will be prolonged too much.
Okay.
And to me, if you can't say it in 3 minutes, it's not worth saying anyway.
Okay. So the time limit we have now is 15 minutes. Is that too long?
That's for the total.
Oh, for the total. Oh,
That's
for the
for the total.
total.
Not for-
That's for the
not
total.
for one
Oh,
person.
yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
That's not for one
Okay.
person.
So, that would be a little
3
long.
minutes for an individual is what most of
Okay.
the boards have.
All right.
I mean, I don't care, do you? But 3 minutes.
What I like
that
about it
gets-
is that they have to have something in writing so that you know who's making the statement and what
They
the
sign
real
up.
issue is.
They sign
That's
up.
what I like about it.
Okay. So we're talking about 3 minutes?
And that means if you have 5, a lot of times you might have more than, you're gonna have more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So it could easily run 15 minutes or 20, 18, something like that.
Okay, all right.
And the clerk is the one that would keep up with the amount of time that they have been allotted.
Yeah, I think we've got a timer here to keep track of it.
Right,
Okay.
they do that.
All right,
We do
so-
it all the time.
Okay, so you have the timer, as well as the fact, how is it, I think the time that we have to get that to you, is that sufficient time? To have it before the meeting?
Yeah, I think we have it stated that the form will have to be turned in a week prior to the meeting, so that we have enough time to be prepared for it and have proper notice of it.
All the boards that I serve on, we have a paper in the back, and as they come in, they don't have to sign up a week in advance, because something might come up before that time, but they're able to sign up when they come in to speak. And they're given 3 minutes to take and to talk, whatever they want to talk on. Is what we always do. And in all the board meetings, I mean, it don't matter whether it's the county commissioners or health department or airport authority or what it is.
You prefer the prior to, but have it available on the meeting of.
Right, maybe we could do a hybrid of that, Charlie?
Well, it sort of blends in with my question, would be that this follows the form, and I assume when it was put together, other policies like this within the county were looked at. What what Eugene just said was a little bit different than what it is written, so that's what we need to resolve. But if it's just on sign-in, on the type things that people, and I'd almost defer to staff on that question, but when people want to come and address an issue, I would think we as the board would need a little bit more than just when they signed in at the door and come in, Eugene, because we would need to know what the topic that they were going to talk about would be. It seems like a day or two, or however much you think.
But Charlie, we're not gonna respond to them on the day they
No.
make the
Okay.
presentation. We're not,
Okay.
we're just gonna receive it, and then at a later time, the staff and
Wait a
everybody.
minute, we have a policy. We do not respond to
don't
whoever
respond.
comes
I
and talk.
understand.
You don't want to get involved in that.
I knew not.
Yeah.
We send them feedback from it,
That's,
but
I know.
we don't even send them that. We just have them to talk, and we aren't about to get in an argument with them
Yeah.
when they come up here and go to talking, because they could talk about anything they want to now.
Yeah.
They can talk about me or you.
I understand. They probably are doing that.
That would be,
For both
that
of
would
us.
certainly be an interesting conversation.
That might even include staff. Let me go ahead
free to
and
talk.
say which way, because what's written and what you are suggesting are honestly two different things. So as we hammer this out, and as the public watches us, then they will know one precise way. So, Dr. Hamilton, I guess
What
that's the
I'm liking is the week before, because that's gonna give the clerk certainly time to get things together. We're gonna be able to let them know. There might be room for a hybrid, perhaps, and just let me know what you think about this. That, as an example, if there is some time left over, if we only have 2 or 3 people, and there's room for another 2 people to speak, I see Eugene is saying a definite no.
No,
on that.
definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay. Have it one way or the other, you're saying.
Look, if I'm coming up here to talk, I'm going to talk my 3 minutes. I'm giving you information, and you don't have to do it. You don't have to answer them by any means. And a week ahead of time, why have a week ahead of time when they've got thrown their mind then? Not wait for a week. They might change their mind. Might not even come then.
On the other hand, the week might give them time to think
And
better
you-
about what they have to say and to go through it, as opposed to saying, I'm going to go do it and not think about it.
These people, they know what they're going to say fast, and let me tell you that now. I don't care how you do it, but I'd say let them talk. If they want to talk,
Right,
let them
right.
talk.
Now, most
That's what
of
it
the-
is.
yeah.
Freedom is speech.
Well, we don't publish an agenda in the paper like other boards do.
No, but it won't matter. And you aren't going to answer them. It's no trouble. It's
Is that
nothing
on
for
agenda
you.
on the
All you do is get a list. You give it to the chairman. The chairman calls them to come up at the time that we have allotted for this. And it could be 3 minutes for it, or it could be 18 minutes, depending on how many is going to talk. It's just simple.
Mr. Chairman.
We're making a mountain out of nothing.
I like the fact that we are instituting a public information policy, and that they can fill it out whenever they want to, and
Yeah.
present it whenever they want to, even sporadic. When they walk in the door, they pick up a copy, because the public is free to do what it desires, so we can accept the policy.
You're the boss to do what you want to do.
I'm the boss. I didn't know that. I thought we all had votes and stuff.
We want you to believe that anyway.
Want me to believe that? Okay, I believe that. How about for you
Are
guys?
you ready for a motion?
Well, I'd like to get some information and some ideas from those on the left.
Who among you all wants to light into Eugene?
I don't care.
But what do you
But I'm
think
telling you,
about
that's the
this?
easy way.
Well,
in terms of the policy.
What we
Today.
did, we researched other Department
I
of
saw
Social
the-
Services.
There's about 5
to look at
5 to
how they
10.
were doing it, and we patterned our policy after them. And when we look at it, the comment section, this will give us an idea of what clients are coming to discuss, and if we need to prepare anything, we can prepare it. You know, if someone come up unannounced, then there's no
Well,
way of getting information. But what we're trying to do is give you an opportunity to know in advance that when we send out the board packet, you'll have a general idea how many people will be speaking on what topic that they will be presenting on. And this was just the guideline that we would be using to accomplish that.
Our agenda is on the website.
Okay. And you guys have anything about having this as a formal way to have the citizens address us?
Oh, our board used to do that for years.
Really?
Anyway. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We
All
just always designated 15 minutes, and if people wanted to come, they came.
All right.
I can't even remember.
See, they
what-
don't have a problem with it, Mr. Chairman.
They don't have a problem, and
You mean you give them, if they want to talk 15 minutes, you let them
No,
talk?
no, we always had it on the agenda, 15 minutes, but if nobody showed up, we just went
Well,
on to the
right.
next agenda.
Well, we do that too. I mean, a lot of times, we don't have anybody make a
Right.
comment.
wow.
Well, I don't think we required that they give us a week's notice.
No, you don't, that's not, I don't care if you do it to stop, I don't agree with that.
Because like you said, back when we did it, you don't respond back. You just allow them to have the opportunity to address what they want to address, but it's not an engagement.
That's
Right.
right. You don't even open your mouth to them.
Mm-hmm.
You let
That's
them
true.
talk and get it off their chest and go on. That's all you got to do.
Okay.
Very simple.
I see a lot of smiles and other facial expressions. What I'd like to do is to get a motion on the current policy on the draft here.
Mr. Chairman, I offer the motion that we accept the public comment policy and with the addition of providing at the door of completion.
Okay, by at the door, you mean that?
They sign up at the door as well.
And list their topic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now what we're saying is that not to have it come in the week before, but
I didn't say not to.
we would prefer that,
We prefer that.
but we'll accept walk-ins.
Yes.
Okay. That's-
And
seems
at the
we think-
meeting, we always ask, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Okay, and what we're gonna do is put you in charge of that. Eugene, and say, Eugene, would you like, you'll ask that, okay, well, that sounds
I got
good.
one question.
Okay,
In the event that we have 5 or 6 individuals that write in to speak, and we allot each one of those individuals 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
You already have your allocated 15 minutes. So then do you
We can-
allow, I'm just asking, so then do you allow the individuals that sign in at the door to speak as well? Or what?
If we so desire as a board, we can offer a motion that we expend the time to
Okay.
include those.
Okay.
If necessary. So, we can power the
which
vote.
is some of the things, okay.
I don't agree with it, I'm gonna vote against it, but go ahead.
Okay, well, okay, let me see. All right,
You're
well,
making something that's nothing.
Is that, yeah.
okay.
Or you let them talk, and that's good. I
Okay.
like to hear people talk.
You do?
Of course I do. That's
could-
what I talk.
That's a surprise, okay.
All right.
Well,
Well,
this is
Mary,
a-
would you make your motion again?
I offer a motion that we accept the public comment policy to include at the door sign up.
Okay, is there a second?
I told you, I'm not gonna vote for it. You go ahead.
This is yours, Eugene.
You want a public.
No, it's
It's
not.
your way, Eugene.
It's at the door.
It's at the door, but there's other things too, though. The only thing I would say is just have a paper at the door. Anybody who wants to talk, let them talk for 3 minutes. That's it. That's all you gotta have.
Let me ask a question. If we do it this way and we find that it doesn't work this way, can we come back and readdress it?
Yeah, we can revisit this.
Okay, I second Mary's motion.
Okay. All right. Motion has been made and seconded with the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
I oppose it. I'm just making it too hard. Go ahead.
Okay.
That's all right.
Okay.
We're not all supposed to agree with each other.
I've heard rumors about that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next, we're going to go on to the bid packets, and that'll be done by Mr. Perry.
We received 4 bids for the in-home aid services. Addis Healthcare, And they are proposing to provide in-home aid services at the rate of $12.35 an hour.
Now, all of these are bid on the same thing.
Yes. Looking at McLeod and Associates. I'm trying to find their bid amount. It's $11.50 per hour.
McLeod and Associates.
McLeod and Associates.
Is that the first time they've made a bid, or? I'm not sure I remember them.
Is this the first? Is this the first time for McLeod?
No, okay.
Is that it?
No, I got two
No,
more.
it's two.
Two more, okay. Who are you using there?
Addis. Action Health Staffing and Home Care Services, they are bidding $12.42 per hour. Health Pro Home Care, they're $3 per 15 minutes increments, so that'll be $12.
$12.
Those are the 4 bids. What Ms. Gwen Burns and staff would do, they would go out to all 4 of the agencies to review and see whether or not they have the manpower to do it, and then they will make a recommendation in our May board meeting as to which one they recommend. But you have the information as to why each one of the 4 bids for the contract.
Okay, and we'll get that in the summary.
Right.
Yeah, summary, okay. Was there any discussion about anything? Is there anything that people might like?
I would like it when you bring it back to compare the 4, because it's a policy that the low bid gets the bid, otherwise there's no need to bid it. You know what I'm talking about. So we want to be fair to
But you
whoever
want
is
to make
bidding.
sure that they are capable of handling.
Well, of course, yes. We want to make sure they're capable of handling. That's the number 1 issue.
As I recall, I think you addressed that
Yeah.
in the last time we had this in a
Yeah.
summary, things
Oh, yes,
of that
I know.
nature. Okay. All right, next we're gonna go on to Child Abuse Prevention Month, and that's Sharon Jones.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you today?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sharon B. Jones. I'm a Child Protective Services social worker in the In-Home Services Unit. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Placed in front of you is a potted blue pinwheel. Pinwheels for prevention to celebrate healthy, happy childhoods. Pinwheels is a reflective of the bright futures all children deserve. Each year, there are 3 million reports of child abuse in the United States. A report of child abuse is made every 10 seconds. Almost 5 children die every day as a result of child abuse. More than 3 out of 4 are under the age of 4. Child abuse occurs across all socioeconomic levels, ethnic, cultural, religions, and educational levels. Neglect is the most widespread form of child abuse. All types of abuse are damaging, even if less physical noticeable, they still bear scars and require intervention to protect a child's life. Pitt County received 1,002 neglect and abuse reports in 2012. There were 4 child fatalities. On April the 10th and April 23rd, Pitt County DSS will be having a Prevent Child Abuse Prevention Walk. The walk will begin at 9:30 a.m. in front of the county office building. We invite you all to attend. At this time, I ask that the members of the Child Abuse Prevention Team please stand, and that's Kendrick Burton, Lavanya Newsom, Crystal Days, and Laura Lambert. Thank you.
Could you, just over the last year or so, I know there's been tremendous changes in economics and things of that. Have you seen changes in child abuse instances, reports, or things of that nature?
I am in home services, and the reports are basically done upstairs, which is assessments, and so at this time, I cannot answer that
Oh.
question. So maybe Ms. Dixon could answer that question.
In terms of Child Abuse and Prevention Month, I would say the majority of our referrals are around neglect, and that can have anything to do with housing, being able to feed your children, be able to get them to a physician. We do see a lot of situations that are due to economics, yes.
You said there were 4
Fatalities.
Child
Fatalities.
fatalities, yes, sir.
in Pitt County.
Yes, sir.
What kind of penalties were placed upon those individuals that did this?
There's no penalties. We have the state that looks at each and every fatality to decide if they're going to come to your county and do a child fatality review. They often, out of those reviews, come recommendations for the local, like Pitt County or whatever county is doing that, recommendations around how you can do things better. And they look at the recommendations we take seriously the recommendations of the reviewers, definitely. But as far as consequences, no. I mean, it's for the community and the agency to learn about the review, because when we have a review, we pull everybody that was involved in the case in pretty much any way into the room to review that fatality.
You mean there's no action taken?
That's what I was wondering.
I
No
think you're
action?
talking about legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, law enforcement may be involved if it's a situation where the person has abused a child and there has to be prosecution. Law enforcement is involved with that. But the child fatality review is separate from what law enforcement does to prosecute the person for the injury to the child.
I thought you meant as far as for the agency ramifications.
All right, these are young children. How about senior citizens? I know they're mistreated. Does Pitt County do anything about that?
Well, during Elder Abuse Month, which we did last year, do that presentation. And what month? I can't
That's
even.
they're talking primarily
Oh,
about
I know
child
they
abuse.
are.
Yeah,
I
but
know
there,
that, but
yeah,
it's a similar thing.
there is a month out of the year that we do a presentation around that.
I think it's next month.
I thought so, yeah. So next month, Paula and Cynthia will come and talk about that, Elder Abuse Month.
If I could say something, our emphasis has been on maintenance income or income maintenance, and services deserves a whole lot of credit in this county. Margaret is over all the services, and I know there are adult services, children's services, and the children's services includes child protective and adult protective and those things. And our services unit is definitely one we can be proud of. And we don't give it a lot of attention because it's pretty much doing their own thing and doing a good job.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, and I think that we need to reward the the workers and how well a job they're doing, and let them know that we're thinking about that, so. give them a round of
Yes,
applause
it is.
for that. Thank you very much.
You could show your support by coming out and walking with us.
You
Okay.
didn't say how far we're gonna walk. You said right here.
You can walk as far as you can.
How far is it set?
From here to Raleigh.
About
Oh, my.
quarter of a mile, isn't that, Sharon, half a mile?
Around the hospital.
Right,
That's nothing.
goodness.
that's nothing.
You walked in a farmer's day.
We'll give you a T-shirt,
A T-shirt?
won't we, Sharon?
All right. Well, usually you're gonna represent us that don't go, is that right? Thank you. All
Not
right.
me. I do enough walking at home.
Oh, okay. All right. Next we'll have NC Fast, Kathy Hardison.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Nice to see all of you again. I was here November of 2011. I think there's a couple of new faces here.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I told you about what was coming with NC Fast. So I'm here today to give you an update on what's happened with NC Fast and our next steps in NC Fast. So, as of March, all of our counties are now using NC Fast for food nutrition services. So we have fully launched Project One, we call Project One. So we've shut down the old food stamp system. It's no longer available for anybody to use. And back at the project, we have a support team that's doing operations and maintenance. So it's an ongoing effort to support the counties in food nutrition services. Projects 2 and 6 are currently underway, and Project 2 and 6 encompasses all the programs that are in the current eligibility information system, which is the EIS system. Those programs are Medicaid, Work First, Special Assistance, and Refugee Assistance. And we're also requiring that the reception module that is part of the NC Fast package has to be used beginning with the implementation of these programs. Mainly because we have to be able to track for Medicaid purposes like they have always had to track for the Alexander laws. Also, we're rolling out document management with Projects 2 and 6. The state will provide the document management system. The counties just have to provide scanners and the software that goes with the scanners. What we're currently doing on the project in preparation for Projects 2 and 6 is we're conducting foundation workshops across the state, and we have completed 10 of those. We have 3 more to go, and we will finish those up next week, and one of those will be in Pitt County. So we're looking forward to coming back here next week. We'll do the couple other northeastern counties and get these completed. But these have been really well-received workshops. When we did Project 1, we did what we called initial meetings and kickoff meetings. And the initial meetings were with management level, and the kickoffs were with staff that were going to be using the system. But this time we decided that we really need to concentrate on the planning piece of it. So we're dealing with management level at these foundation workshops and telling them, actually giving them an opportunity to work amongst themselves without interruptions. So we pull them all together in one place and actually give them questions to consider and come up with plans. And I think it's been very well received. So here's our plan for rollout for the Projects 2 and 6. You'll see the blue counties are the 3 primary pilot counties, and also lessons learned from our first project. We decided to concentrate those a little closer to home. So if we need to get out there in a hurry, we can get there in a hurry and do anything that needs to be done or hold meetings at spur of the moment rather than plan a week ahead to go to Clay County or somewhere like that. So we'll do Chatham, can't see, excuse me, Chatham, Johnson, and Orange, excuse me, couldn't see that one, for the first 3 primary pilots. And then we'll have 11 secondary counties that we will do the following month. And those months are currently June for the primary and July for the secondary. So you'll see there's 11 secondary counties that are colored in green. So June 17th is when the 3 primary pilots will go live. And then When that happens, the other counties will actually see changes to their screens because this is an existing product. So we are adding new screens to an existing product. So we'll be training people on how to respond to the new screens that they'll be seeing. And then we'll do what we call a soft launch. And we did a soft launch, hard launch approach with Project One, where we only had new applications taken in NC-FAST for the first month or so, and then we converted all the cases, and they did all the work on all the cases during the hard launch. So we're going to do that again this time. We're going to go back to this map. We'll probably start with the southeastern states after we do the pilots, work our way up to the northeastern states. So Pitt will probably be in that second phase, and then we'll start moving westward across the state. So we're actually going to do the soft launch and just do applications on people who are not in the EIS system. But we'll also have to convert history because Medicaid requires 10 years of history to be maintained. So we'll have to start converting the historical person data out of EIS for anybody who's ever received before. And that means we'll never be able to go back to EIS once we start implementing. We were able to open FSIS back up for the Project One, but we will not be able to do that for this project. Also involved in this project is a health benefit exchange. So we're going to do that as web-based training in September for all 100 counties because the counties need to be able to take the Affordable Care Act applications on October the 5th so that benefits can start on January the 1st, 2014. So we've got a team of folks on our project that are working on that piece of the project. And then the hard launch, where you have to do everything in NC-FAST and the EIS is closed down, will start happening in September for the non-pilot counties and roll out through February next year. So you're looking for probably October date for Pitt County. The other thing that's going on as part of this project is the way NC-FAST is set up. When a client comes into the agency, they don't come in and apply for just food stamps and then they go see somebody else and apply for Medicaid. The system is set up so that a customer can come in and see one worker and apply for any programs that they may be eligible for or want to apply for. So with that being said, we're going toward the concept of a universal worker with this implementation. So also the system doesn't have program-specific security roles. There is an eligibility worker role, an eligibility lead worker role, eligibility supervisor role. There's not a food stamp eligibility worker, Medicaid eligibility worker. They're all the same. So if you get access to one program, you have access to all. There's also a single interview. So there's an integrated application with an IEG script, which is intelligence evidence gathering. So as you go through and ask questions, all the questions are being applied to any program that they're applying for. So you don't have to ask the same questions multiple times. All this stuff is stored in the system, and when it's time to submit an application, you determine what applications to submit, and it runs all the rules for all the programs and determines eligibility for all programs. So we are really pushing the universal worker role with this implementation, although we do understand that since people who are in nursing facilities or adult care homes will not be getting food stamps, so they could actually be maintained by a separate team. Those are the more complicated cases, and a lot of counties are opting to keep those separate. Some of the things we've learned from Project One and from our foundation workshops that we call best practices is as you get ready for Project 2 and 6, you need to make sure you have the necessary equipment. Make sure that you have all the hardware and software that is needed based on the information that's provided by the project, and this has been sent out to the directors and the county champions and the technical champions. So make sure you have all these things upgraded at least to a minimal. If you can go better than minimal, go better, because you're also going to be using document management with this project, and that's going to take up more memory and bandwidth. So just plan accordingly and make sure you have the equipment you need, because slow response time was one of the big issues with Project One, and it was pretty much related to the county's bandwidth. So, just FYI. If you've been thinking about purchasing a document management system, we urge you to reconsider, because we are going to provide that, and that is money you don't need to spend, although you do have to provide scanners, and that usually comes with the software that you need. Other things that we have learned, that if you have someone that's new, that eventually is going to be a Medicaid worker, let them start out in food stamps or FNS. That way they get exposure to NC Fast. They don't have to learn an old system and then relearn a new system. Just have them work in NC Fast doing food nutrition services first, and then when you start rolling out Medicaid, they will already know how to use the system, and it'll be so much easier for them. We have kind of figured out that people who have used these systems for many years are having some of the hardest time using the new system. They are having to unlearn the old system, relearn a new system, and people that are hired off the street that have never worked at social services before are actually picking it up faster than the people who've been around a while. And I hate to say that, because I'm one of those people who've been around a while, but the younger folks do have a tendency to pick it up faster, and they're used to doing web-based applications. They can fly through those. So just another thing I talked to Mr. Averitt about is even providing, giving them scenarios to work when they interview people to see how they do in web-based applications. There's a practice area called the sandbox that they can actually go into. So I think he's taken that into consideration. Because of that universal worker concept, there is a need to start cross-training staff on new policies and concepts for all programs. So when we do our foundation workshop here next week, we'll get deeper into that, but just an FYI. There are certain things that you also need to think about for a universal worker model. A common intake unit, multidisciplinary teams to support caseloads. So there's knowledge about different systems and different programs within one unit. Job reclassifications, they'll no longer say that they're for a food stamp position, they'll say it's for an eligibility position. You may want to look at other descriptions in there to require that they are adept at web-based applications. We may even have to talk about physical changes to your office, because you can't have multiple reception windows for different programs. You'll have to set it up somehow so that anyone can go to any window and apply for any program. So that's one of the things we talk about in our foundation workshops. It's very important that all vacant positions and backlog, and all vacant positions are filled and backlogs are eliminated as much as possible. If you're behind when you implement, you're going to get further behind as you go along, because you have a learning curve. Every county has experienced it. It takes a little while to get used to a new system, the ins and outs, the little quirks. Once they go through about 6 months, they start settling down and things become more of a rote thing. But it is a major change to implement a new system, and the learning curve is something you really need to consider. So you want to have all your cases as caught up as possible. I understand that you did approve some temporary staff for Pitt County Social Services, and I hope that you will continue to allow temporary staff through the implementation of this next project. I think it's very important that you have these people that can come in and help keep the cases from getting backlogged and keep the benefits going out to your clients. And we also want all counties to actively participate in our activities. One thing that kind of caught my attention when I was gathering some data for another purpose is that I was looking at the number of caseworkers that were in some of my counties and comparing them to other counties, and then I started looking at sizes of counties. And so I've extracted this. You'll see that Pitt County is kind of in the middle. So they have and this data was as of November of last year, but it's, so it's, I'm sure changed somewhat, but basically it's not drastically changed. So you'll see the approximate number of cases for each of these counties. And then I put the number of FNS supervisors and the number of lead workers and the number of FNS workers. And Buncombe County is one of my counties, and that's kind of why I got involved in this. I had been to see Buncombe, and then I went to see Pitt, and I thought, what's the difference in number of cases between these two counties? Buncombe has 52 caseworkers, and Pitt has 16. Well, I know Buncombe County is one of the wealthier counties, and they can handle this. But I also, just to be fair, know that they did cross-train some of their Medicaid workers so they could actually do FNS, but still they have a large staff for FNS. And this number reflected here is, like I said, this is as of November, and I know that there has been, you now have 20 out of 22 positions filled, and you've got 2 lead workers now, and you've got a couple vacancies, and you've got your temps. But just so you have an idea, Davidson County also did some cross-training with Medicaid, so they do not have quite 48 workers, but they have 48 workers that can actually use the system. New Hanover does not have cross-train. Catawba does not. So just wanted to give you an idea of the staffing with comparable sized counties, so you can see that Pitt's not quite up to some of the other counties. So I think that's just for your information too. I have. Anyway, that is all I have to say. Thank you for allowing me to come here, and I'll be glad to take any questions. If I can't answer it, I'll be sure and get back to you. But I thank you.
So,
Not very much. It's in there. Yeah, but, I'm talking about, that's the number of cases. We don't have as many cases by that.
You have, compared to who?
By the number of cases.
Right.
Is what I'm referring to. I have some questions. First, we have to get all the food stamps and things such as that process.
Yes, sir.
What I'm asking that for my benefit. We cannot go with this fast start until we get that done with Medicaid, can we? With that, or with US, wait a minute, let me see how I wrote it down here. Let's see, North Carolina passed, and I think it's very important when you said that workers are going to do all of this, but they've got to learn. I think
Yes, sir.
that is the key to it.
Yes, sir.
But I know I'm kind of old, and the young people will catch on much faster than the elderly ones. We might as well face it. All right, that means that the elderly people are going to have more training and more help to take and to be able to catch up, and some of them might not ever be able to catch up. Am I not right?
That is correct. It's
All right,
possible.
and that's where administration, supervisors will play their part in making sure that we are able to catch up. You see, I do not want Pitt County to get behind on all of this other as we were behind on the food stamps.
Yes, sir.
I do not want that. The citizens of Pitt County do not want that.
Yes, sir.
And we want to prevent that from happening. And that's where I'm looking, I want your help, the state's help, to make sure, let us know if we can do something to take and to prevent that from happening. I think it is very important. All right, let's see. Now, you said that Pitt County will have to have the necessary equipment,
Yes, sir.
and it has to be upgraded to take and to do the job that is required. How does Pitt County stand on that issue?
Dear County Director letter went out last week or the week before. Mr. Perry, do you recall that letter? It does have the specifications, Brian, you know. And so we give the specifications to the counties, and the counties have to make sure that their equipment meets those specifications.
How do we stand?
We stand
That's-
okay in that
All right, that's
respect.
very important.
Hardy Patel is working with us on the bandwidth to ensure that we have enough bandwidth for food and nutritional service, and then we roll into family and children Medicaid and work first that we have enough bandwidth to handle the flow.
I, for one board member, would like to have a report on that as to how we're progressing pertaining to this so that we will not be behind. Because I believe, didn't hear you say this, but I had heard it from somewhere else, that we really start on this other in June.
June is when the pilot counties
Right.
roll out.
And to
yes.
me, that's a crucial time.
Yes.
That we need to be prepared and we need to have all of these food stamps done completely at that time. Am
We
I not
have-
right?
I
We
agree.
have already started working on our family and children Medicaid and our work first. We have what we call backlog Fridays, where it is designated only for working on the backlog cases. So we are working in the process of working on family and children Medicaid, along with adult Medicaid and work first, along with still going along with our food and nutritional service. So we're doing backlog and all these programs on Fridays, which we call Backlog Friday, where they are designated just to work on the backlog cases. So we have already started preparing for our for our work first, family, children Medicaid, and adult Medicaid. So we're not waiting till June to roll around before we start working on it.
Oh, no, we certainly cannot wait to do, if we do, we're gonna be way behind. And that's what, all right, now, I was told that we still have about 2,200 of the food stamps people to take in the process, is that correct?
I have, you have the report on your desk of our backlog.
Yeah, that's the backlog, this
Right.
is where we have to catch up,
Right.
that's the reason that we.
And you're gonna be giving that in
For
your
people.
And
report?
I'll be
Okay.
talking about.
He's gonna
that.
be giving that in his report.
All right, well, we got a lot to come on that, giving these reports.
You know, one thing I was thinking, I really appreciate you taking time and coming out. Would this be reasonable? I really appreciate your best practices, which is basically a roadmap. Would it be reasonable that, set as an example, that as we get prepared for this, that we use the best practices as a roadmap in terms of what we need to do and things of that nature?
We have a document that's called a change discussion guide. It is
Uh-huh.
82 pages long.
How many?
That 82 pages long, and that is the document that we give to our counties to work with to make sure that they're prepared. It asks every possible question you could think of, so they think through their processes and have a guide, a roadmap.
One
And
of
we
the-
meet with them on a regular
Okay.
basis and see where they are with those
Oh,
steps.
gee, I was gonna, one of the things that I'm thinking, to help us out, because we're trying to keep up with these things, would we as a board kind of like where we are on these best practices as a, as a monthly, would that be reasonable? Is that reasonable or not?
It's reasonable.
Is it?
We have already started that process, so
Okay.
there's no problem.
Okay, so we would get that report on that. Okay, good, Eugene, you were,
I have one more question,
Okay.
and I'm gonna try to be quiet.
you're
all right.
trying to be quiet.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, the same workers are doing the work for the food stamps and these others.
Yes, sir.
They now, how many of these people do we have that's going to be doing all of this? And because from what I gather, these people are going to be, all of them are going to be capable of doing it.
They will need to be trained and
To do
be
it
capable.
all.
Yes, and
The
it would
one
be-
worker
yes,
is going to do for that one person. that
for
comes
every
in.
income maintenance program.
Which is good, and I think and that's what Pitt County's got to be prepared to make sure that all of these workers are prepared to take and to do for these citizens the complete thing.
Yes, sir.
And that's going to be our responsibility to make sure that that is carried out.
And I will work with Pitt County on a regular
That's
basis
what we want.
to get this
So
going.
now I'm going to try to be quiet.
He's gonna try.
I'm gonna try.
I will.
Better hurry up and talk.
Okay.
All right, I have two questions. Number one, and it would assume that as this program is implemented, then it will work both ways, so that if a person, for whatever reason, is ineligible, the computer program will show also all the other programs that they are now ineligible. In other words, if they show as ineligible on one.
If a person has to to apply for programs, if they ask to apply for programs, it will tell them if they are eligible or ineligible for each of the programs they ask to apply for.
All right, that was question one. Second question was back to theirs and Eugene's wanting a report and an update. In that update, could we include, and this is a question also, what do we anticipate needing? I'll say that is an expense for us, for the county, or for this department in software, computers, or that, and is it budgeted? That would be, because as we lay out all the programs for them to walk on, we do have to have the road. And yes, I agree with Eugene in reporting that, but has there been a study, or was it part of this study, what we have in existing software? And if they're going to provide, didn't I hear all but some of the software that we would need?
We're going to provide the document management system, but you have to provide the software that is used for scanning
Yes.
documents.
And other than bandwidth, which we know can crowd on counties, we had heard that, but do we have a need? Do we have ample, because we're putting these people under a lot of load, do we have ample, I'll call it, equipment, computers, what they need in software, the links? Do we have that in place? And if not, do we have it budgeted?
Only thing we missing is on the, going into the document management part, having the scanners, but beyond that, we have everything in place. And we have done research looking at 2 different companies for our document management process, scanners and different things. And we have asked for additional staff as we move forward, and the next phase of NCFAS looking at bringing in temporary staff, so we have already projected for that.
When I was putting the budget together, MIS said that our equipment was adequate for what we needed at this particular time. They will be continuing to monitor it for us, and when we start actually using the scanning process in the Medicaid module, when it comes on, there may be a need for larger bandwidth and this kind of thing. But Mike Taylor told us that they'll be looking at in January and be upping the bandwidth or whatever they need at that point in time. But he said we were okay at this time.
All right, the scanners,
There-
I would assume, pretty soon, we have to get that.
There is money in the budget, in a computer line item, as we call it, that could be used for that equipment, should it get funded.
And there are no state grants or anything that can help with that portion of it.
Yes, sir.
All right, but we do have a plan already in place.
Yes, we do.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
If I recall, I can't remember his name, the gentleman that came earlier that talked about some of the computing needs, that indicated that we were up to speed and that the equipment had been budgeted. Okay.
That's what they were telling us when we
Okay.
were putting the budget
Because
together.
I think that was maybe 2 months ago.
Right.
When he was here. So he had talked about that. I remember that, but glad you went over that because they had talked about that earlier with the equipment for NCFAS coming up.
I ask that in light of the amount of load and learning and change that is going on. Certainly the last thing, and noting that we are starting a little bit behind, we certainly don't want the equipment to be a month or two.
Sure.
Later getting in, or we will ask of people what they cannot produce.
I have one other question. When a person comes in to apply, they have to ask, am I eligible for a program? Is that correct?
They have to say they want to apply.
They said they have to say they want to apply.
Yes, you
Now-
can't force them to apply for a program
Okay.
they don't want
Now,
to apply
suppose
for.
they don't know that they're eligible for a program.
Workers do talk to them and say, you look like you may be eligible for
Oh,
this program or
okay.
that program.
So
That's-
there is something
Oh, yeah,
for
they
that.
always
Okay.
have done that. They tell them everything they could possibly apply for that they may be eligible for, and then the
Okay.
client makes the determination on what they want to apply for.
Okay.
All right? Any other questions?
Anybody?
In that report that Mr. James asked George to give, if you would, maybe just for my part, if you would keep us up to date on equipment, because as we go into this, we're gonna find something, and anything with computer isn't $10. I mean, you know, we know that. And if you would, in that report that he requested, if you would let us know where we are on that equipment, when scanners would be ordered, when they would be in, you know, if there's ancillary tables and cords and all of this other, that obviously has to make it work, but so that we got a functioning unit for either the temporary people or our people as they train.
Sound like you've ordered some computer equipment in the past.
You and I both work with the same IS
Yes.
department.
Okay, well, thank you for taking time out and coming and giving the presentation and also indulging us as board members.
Well, thank you for allowing me.
Yeah,
I'll be glad to
appreciate
come
it.
back anytime.
Really appreciate it.
very
Thank you.
much.
Okay. Next, we're going to go on to the daycare report. That'll be given by Margaret Dixon.
Ms. Quinn's gonna tell you where we are.
Okay.
We're still tracking right on with, we're within range of where we should be for the money that we have left.
Am I hearing you?
Are you hearing me? I'm not sure.
You can't hear.
Oh, you cannot hear me? I said, we're right on track with the money that we've got available for the rest of this fiscal year to keep the children that we're currently serving in care.
And we're not serving any 7th, 8,
8 or 9 year old.
8 or 9.
8 or
Okay,
9.
Gotcha.
8 or 9 years old.
But after our correction, just like we predicted, we're really on track with where
Right.
we want it to be.
To be.
To end the year.
Yes.
We will not be asking for any county dollars.
Good.
There you go.
That makes him happy.
No, I already, I don't mind going to bed if I think you.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
I think the thing is that we're on target, because I think that was our major concern, that something would happen and we wind up in a bad place.
And I think the big goal, too, is that the new fiscal year, we're probably on target to start the next year out what we think we're going to get in the way of funding without having to do anything too drastic, because we're probably not going to get more money next year.
I think from Raleigh, we'll probably get less.
I think you're probably
I
right.
really do, and I'm not trying to, this
I think you're probably
does
right.
not look good.
All right. Okay. Next, we're going to go on to DSS project updates, and that'll be by Gwen Burns.
Okay, the technology report will show that we have 8 projects that are ongoing with the technology project team, and I've given you a priority listing on each of these projects and a start date if we've started, or a due date if we have some indication of when we will complete the project, and also giving you where we are in completion with the projects that we've started on and the status of those projects.
When I read this at my leisure, I was 75% of what numbers? I mean,
75% of 100%.
when you're talking about 100%
That means it will be completed at 100%.
of, see, this really isn't saying a whole lot. Let's say that you're working with 1,500 cases.
Okay, this isn't about
What is it about?
cases. Okay, this is about completion of technology projects that we are working on with the technology project team.
So,
The number of
how many,
number.
this is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get to.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers. I don't know what 75% is
Yeah,
of
that's
what number or
she's got-
whatever.
she's got-
I need,
Okay, like for instance, with, the first project that's listed is the communicator. Okay, that communicator project is a project that we use to notify workers when to report to the shelter. So at this point, we've completed 75% of that project. We have all the names in communicator, all the addresses, all the phone numbers. And that's like the system that the school uses. Like, for instance, if the school were to send out an alert to parents, this is the type of system that we will now be using to send out an alert to an employee at DSS to report to the shelter, rather than us picking up the phone like we have in the past and calling each person and telling them when to report to the shelter. Communicator will send out an alert to everyone at one time who's to report and the time they're to report and the shelter that they need to report to. I don't know any other way to give you how much of the project, unless you can tell me another way to give you how much of the project has been completed, other than to give you a percentage of it.
If there are not
They-
numbers involved, and
Right.
remember, we don't understand it quite like you all would, but let me give you an example. If there are 5,000, I'm just picking numbers, but if there are 5,000 people that have to be entered, put in place, when you say a project, are all 5,000 in and we're now waiting for IS to turn it on or plug it in? Or of the part that we can do, maybe just a hair more description
Okay.
of what our part that we control that is being done. When you say the word communicator, some of us had to listen carefully to even know what that meant. And if you say, well, we're 75%, without that being just a wild guess or an estimate, when she was asking for numbers, and I'm not trying to speak for her, but if there are 5,000 people, have 3,750 people been entered and we're finishing up now? Or that kind of stage on the
you're
project?
on target.
Because there will be some things, I would think, in projects like this that we may or may not can control.
Right.
If it suddenly is a fluke or an IS issue that's now got to be resolved, and if we say we've got a due date, then to miss that due date might at all not be a failure on our staff's part.
Right.
But I think when she asked for numbers, Ms. Perkins, please correct me, because when you speak for somebody else, I realize that's dangerous. But that tells us the part that we're responsible for, we're 75% complete. Using that example, 3,750 people are already in the system and is ready to go, or so many areas in the county are in and ready to go. That would make a little more sense
More
to
sense.
some of us that maybe don't understand all of it.
All right. We'll work on giving you more
You will let
description.
No, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. One of the things that, from my standpoint, that I appreciate is that, in terms of some of the information we're asking, it's more understandable from our standpoint, and we're trying to do more in terms of numbers, and we appreciate what you're trying to do. And this is very new for both of us, and we're trying to get a little more detailed, we're trying to get a little more specific, because that helps us as a board keep track of things. You guys are certainly well skilled in your areas, and when you're presenting some of the data, it's understandable for you, but for us, we're kind of still stumbling and fumbling and bumbling. So we appreciate you looking into that and accepting our,
I think when we do that
Yeah.
in public meetings, might I add to Dr. Hamilton's comment, when we do this in public meetings, for those of us that have been here and heard all this, we are televised to the open public. And if I happen to be a person that was stood in line, clean out the street to wait to get my food stamps, and we talking about communicator and I might be 75, does that affect me? Does it not affect me? Or why are they working on that and I can't even get my my eligibility. So I think if just a little bit more description, it will help us, but also the public, the general
Sure.
public, to understand those things we're required. If a parent thinks about you're putting in a system to call me if there is an emergency, now it rings true. You know, folks pay attention to that, and any parent will. Thank you.
Because I think one of the things that's happening is that a good number of us are asked by constituents, you know, well, what does that mean? And we're kind of having to come back, and so that's a very good point. Okay, next we're going to go to NC Fast update, and that'll be Brian.
Thank you. My part of the NC Fast update deals with our plan to work on the food and nutrition services backlog. And this is a smaller part of the whole larger implementation plan that we're working with to prepare for further developments in NC Fast. Now, if I could just explain the report that you have, the reason we're tracking it this way is because we do not have a fully developed report in the NC Fast system that can give us this data. So the data we're collecting and we're showing here is the number of cases, recertifications in food and nutrition services that are yet to be processed. When you look on the report, you'll see a line that says total research due by the state report. This is the total potential number of recertifications in the month indicated. This is the potential number of research. We only have a recertification if the client submits the recertification paperwork. The other line that says unprocessed cases, that's the line, that's the number that are still left from the month of issuance. This is a fluid number, and what I mean by that is because of food and nutrition services policy, let's take the month of March, for example. Clients have until February 15th to turn in their recertification form to have their food stamps issued in March. If that's the timely date. So when we get those in timely, the ones that are turned in timely between February 1st and February 15th, we focus on those first. But the policy allows those recertification forms to be turned in anytime between February 1st and the end of March. So there's a whole 2-month period. So as you can see, we're tracking this on a weekly basis, showing the number that are left to be processed for the specific month. So on this report, if you look at the end of the report, as of last Friday, April 5th, we had 125 from February issuance and 891 from March issuance that we're working on. Those were the issuance months. And so this number that you're seeing each week, we're reducing the number by the number that have actually been processed, and then the number increases by any that we received during the week that were turned in up until the end of March. So anything that's not turned in by this example for the end of March, that individual would have to come in and reapply for the benefits. How we're organized, we, back last fall, in Family and Children's Medicaid, which we now call Family Assistance because there is a Work First component in that unit, we determined that when we finally had filled enough positions that we could divide into application and processing, and redeterminations, the staff were involved in the decision to divide into 2 groups and have one group focus just on applications and one group focus just on recertifications. In the food and nutrition services area, we had a number of frozen positions and vacancies that did not really allow us to entertain that idea until now we've got enough in that area that we're focusing on just applications or just on recertification. So we have some staff that are going to do applications only, intake and processing. The other staff are going to focus on the recertifications. The staff are very much in favor of this. Their input was sought, and they're excited about the idea to be able to do this. This ties in with the way the universal worker concept is going to work, once we get to that point, when all the programs are folded together and the clients are seen by one worker, the plan is that they would see one worker for the intake piece and have an application processed. And then once that piece is finished, then there would be another area, another unit where the actual recertification was done. Some years ago, with eligibility workers or income maintenance caseworkers, this is the way units were divided into intake processing and recertifications, and it really works better that way because the employees can focus on one function instead of trying to balance applications and recertifications. And that worked as long as we had a higher number of staff, but I think over the years, those two functions had to be combined. So I will be happy to answer any questions. Like Mr. Perry said, we're targeting Fridays and all the programs to work on anything that's backlogged. And in food and nutrition services, we also have employees that are coming in and working on Saturdays. So that's where we are, and we'll be, of course, giving you an update as we go along as to how much progress we've made in rectifying the backlogs.
Do you have a target date in which you would hope that there will always, I can imagine, with this month and when they apply and whether they are on time to start with?
Right.
Do you have a target date to get the backlog down to what would be, and for lack of knowing the proper term, an acceptable amount or an amount that other counties may see float month to month?
I would say by the end of June. And how we're approaching this, I didn't say this, we're looking at the total number, and that's how the supervisor determines if I've got 15 workers that are doing research. This is the total number we're behind at this point, so when I divide the work, it might be 12 cases per week, 15 cases per week, 17, depending on whatever the number is at that time, because the only way we're going to get ahead is if we look ahead and give the work assignment based on the number we're working with.
I'm not interested in asking any questions. I'm gonna be asking those questions when it comes to April, at the end of April.
Okay.
May,
Right.
June.
Exactly.
That's when I.
Right, and we'll be bringing you those figures.
Right,
yes.
that's when I want it. What you ask now ain't gonna make it.
But that's how we're
I want
approaching
to be
it.
seeing it go, and I asked the process question, not a figure. You know, that's what I'm interested in, because I would imagine there must be a few that will be floating always.
That's correct. That's just part of the policy.
Part of the process.
Yes,
You
that's
need to be
correct.
aware of what we're looking for.
Okay.
We gotta have these food stamps done.
One of the things, Brian, I understand the material and how you're presenting it. One of the things that would help me out, I'm not jumping for the board, would you be able to provide a cheat sheet on how to read this? Because I'm understanding it, but I
Yes, we
think
can
some of
do
the,
that. We can
some
do
of the
that.
terms
Sure.
and how to read certain things.
We'll put
because
that
I-
together for you.
Yeah, if you would, that would really
Okay.
be helpful. Okay. All right. Next we go, did anybody have any other questions about this report?
I just didn't understand it at all.
Yeah, hopefully with the cheat sheet, that'll kind of help out a little bit.
I
Okay.
would just like to add in that, you know, based on what we've heard today from our Kathy Hardison, our state person, and all the issues that you have brought up in terms of technology and cross-training and staffing and all of that, you know, we have brought a team together and we're working on a strategic plan so that it will lay out all of those goals that you've heard here today into one plan. Those goals delineated with activities surrounding the outcome of those goals, with the dates that we want to see those things completed by, up to and including, you know, the backlog in food stamps. You know, all those benchmarks. Connie and Mary have worked really hard on that strategic plan. You know, we've just got a first draft of the plan, so it really needs some refinement. a little bit of work on it. And I think you're gonna see a great product that will kind of lay this out. We did talk this morning about just what you said, about with this plan needs to come a glossary of terms, okay, so that you can say, because what we take for granted, the way we talk in-house, probably sounds like a foreign language most of the time. So, it will come complete with a glossary of terms so that you can understand what it is we're speaking to when you see something like that.
Yeah, Margaret, and I appreciate that. I know the manager of the county has a team, just like you all have a team, and you have met and you're working this thing out, and that's what I want to see, because that's how we're gonna really make the progress. And that's the reason I said I wasn't saying anything more.
And I think probably by next board meeting, we'll
Yeah,
have a great
you
first
will.
draft for you to
It would
look
be very,
at
I
and give
think
us
that's
your
very
input.
important. I think you're on the right track there too.
All right. Anybody have any other discussion? Okay. Next, we're going to go to the director's report. And,
In the director report, you have a DSS call activity by unit log. It's showing all the calls made for the whole year from January through December of 2012. Ms. Susan May will do this on a monthly basis, so we'll be tracking this year as well, so we can see where the anomalies lie at. But you can see that over a year's worth of time, we made over 1,752,000 calls coming in and going out of this agency. And you can see how many came in through the switchboard, food and nutritional service, adult and family, child support, crisis, Medicaid, transportation. It just give you an idea of the volume of calls that we have coming in and going out of this agency.
How many do you have on the switchboard now?
We have 2 people on the switchboard, and then we have the receptionist acting as a third person when she does not have anyone up front. So I would say 2 people and a part-time that fills in. They're responsible for all calls. All calls for 200 and some employees come through our switchboard.
one of the things that I was looking at is that the bulk of the calls go through Medicaid, child support, and emergency assistance. And that almost makes up almost 40 to 50% of some of the calls. I was just looking for just, in general, is that a different volume? Is that lower, or?
It's probably, since we would do January, February, March of this year, which would show NC FAS translation, so you're probably gonna see more calls coming in as a result of NC FAS for this year, since we started NC FAS in December. But this just gives you a general idea of what it's normally like, and we'll do the next 3 months.
Okay.
But we want to get this out first. But what it shows is that we have a lot of volume of calls coming in. And we stress to our clients that instead of using the switchboard, call your worker direct. All our staff have direct numbers. So there's no need of coming through the switchboard when you can call your worker direct.
Directly. Okay. All right. Is there like a listing of workers that people could access? Like if they forget the number, they lose the card or something like that?
If they forget the number, then they will have to call the switchboard. Or if they have email, then the county has moved to a system that if you know the worker's first name and last name, all you have to do is put George.Perry, then Pitt County NC.gov, and you can send an email directly to the worker.
Okay. This is something that we had asked for the board, and we really appreciate that. I'm wondering, when I read this is really an eye-opener for me. How about you guys? Did you guys see anything here that you weren't expecting, or nothing that was new?
I think what we
just-
noticed is that Even though we say we get a lot of volume, this qualifies the number of calls. that we
1.7 million, that'll
That we
do
actually
it.
get in. You know, we could say we get a lot of calls, but when you look at this, it shows you.
And these are only calls that come through the switchboard and don't reflect the ones the workers
No,
get.
That's in and out.
In and out.
Oh,
So these
okay.
come
Oh,
through-
the in and out.
These come through the switchboard, and each worker got their own number. So when you see food and nutrition service, those are the calls that directly went to the food and nutrition
Oh.
service workers using their numbers.
Okay. All right.
We asked early on, we asked one of the things that we did about 4 or 5 months ago now. We asked, and I know there was a graph or a format for it, but we asked about when Ms. Perkins had a question about the recording of people who had an issue or a complaint call. Are we logging that? I know this is just total phone work volume here, but are we logging that?
Yes, we're logging there, and we are 40%, I think, through on We Serve.
Right.
So we are 40% on We Serve that we have electronically. But we're logging it now, but we will have that information electronically, so we can go in and
For,
Look at it.
when we had asked that, for me, whenever that information comes up,
Yeah.
that more specifically answers the question that I had. And, you know, the numbers are obviously
Yeah.
massive,
Yeah.
but I think that will answer that.
But,
know-
Mr. Patel will be coming back to the board to, present to the board, what we've come up with, for We Serve, for the technology piece of it, and how, complaints will be routed through the agency.
So right now, we're not able to document them actually in numbers, but it will be when this is put in place. Is that what we're saying? We don't have any documented numbers now.
Right.
Is that correct?
But
All
we
right.
will be able to
We
run a
will be able
report.
to
Yeah.
through We Serve?
Yes.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
And that'll be implemented or be complete?
We have a completion date of May 3rd.
Okay.
And I've already, reviewed the wireframe with Mr. Patel and our focus group that's working on that project.
I think for the answer of my question, let me keep it fairly simple. When we've got numbers and when there's enough time to compare those numbers month by month or whatever, then that's more important to me than the process of how Mr. Patel's gonna get it in or set it up or put it out. Yeah, the actual data would be probably that.
And Mr. Mayor, I was gonna, it seemed like back when we were talking about this data about phone numbers, we were, you know, in thinking about the strategic plan. One of the things that is so impactful about this is that you saw how many workers were in food stamps. 16, right? Look at the number of calls 16 people are getting. So if you think of what
looked at that.
impacts them, and we're talking about backlog, and this is the volume of telephone calls, as opposed to, you know, the ability to do real work and sit at my computer and key, you know, because we're timing how long it takes to key in a case, but I'm always picking up the phone, always picking up the phone. I mean, so those, to me, that's a very important piece of data to determine how that's going to impact,
I found
or
it
could
very-
impact, you know,
And
how
you'll
long it takes me to key in a case that we need assigned to you to get keyed in so that we can do our backlog.
And that would be included in your strategic plan.
Well, I'm just saying, we're starting, when you
Yeah.
put this data, this could be a data element that really has a negative impact, you know, because if, I think that's one thing that, why we started talking about phone calls, the volume of phone calls, you know, in and out of the agency, and how that is a tremendous, I mean, it's very time consuming, very time consuming. Not that it's not something that needs to be done, but then when you start looking at data more, part of that strategic plan, we've talked about how our agency is going to educate the community, you know, around issues of better accessing services. You know, so these things are very important in looking at how we're going to better communicate, because I think we're seeing the consumers as a participant in this process. So we want to educate them on how they can best be informed, where they don't have to be calling us all the time, if that makes sense.
Margaret, that's where I messed up. I was gonna ask her about that. I wanted to know why we were 16 in that, and what could we do to prevent that?
Well, we're 16 in that because I think we would agree that we lost positions in food stamps. That wasn't always our staffing. We
No, but
were.
There's more to it than that. We deal with this not only in social services, but it depends upon how it's organized.
I think if we look back over the past
Yeah.
2 years or 3 years, we'll see how we were up to capacity for the volume that we do, but when we lost those positions,
Frozen.
Because if the clients calls their worker, then that is going to affect, I want to know how these other counties were handling theirs. Did they have one switchboard, two switchboards, or were they coming into all of them? That could change everything.
some agencies have a customer service line.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
they
yes,
have,
I
where
know.
you can ask a particular question, and if you need to ask, if you need to ask your worker about when I need to bring a form, fine. But for general information, those kinds of things, now we put that to everybody.
All right, and with one question that I have, and then I'll stand in for Dr. Hamilton as we move along, but one question would be NC Fast, and when we talk about these workers having the ability to enter and do all of it, then now the food and nutrition worker is a multiple worker.
Will
And
be.
so are the other people.
They
And
all
what
are.
would
They
be,
all
that they all become that. So what would be the impact of that? Do you have any idea, or have other counties that are ahead of us in what our needs are?
Well,
At the present
Foundation
time,
meetings
Yeah.
will be helpful.
they're not that far along yet with, the first counties that will actually experience having Medicaid and food and nutrition done together will be in June, so they've not actually done it yet. But the thought is that since you're dealing with one family and all of the programs that one family is eligible for, the efficiency of having it together should help with maybe with the staffing we've got now, maybe when we get where we're going as far as training and get it folded together, that we'll better be able to manage with the staff that we have, hopefully.
Some might have 4
Thank-
workers, I'm calling
Those
now.
3 counties, Brian, that they
Right.
upset, that's where you're gonna go.
Right, they're gonna, and we visited Johnston County.
Right, those are the 3
Right.
counties he's got.
Let Miss Mary, you have a question?
Yeah, my thing is when the key to it all is that you have to log all of the initial data in when they sit down in front of the people. And each piece, if you don't do that, you don't have anything for the system to pull out from. But when you sit down and you get the information from the person and it goes into the system, it's gonna take a little longer. But once it's done, it's there, and everybody can see it.
Well, I just wanted you to be aware as we look at all this data, why are we looking at it, and how do the dots connect on it?
Yeah.
You know, what impact is it having on us?
All right, if we don't have other questions, I
you
believe the next item in the director's report, we'll get him to move along.
You got Addis Healthcare, survey that we did, you got fiscal year 2011, 2012, and 2013. So you have information on the survey
Yeah.
that we sent out. And you have the letter that we sent to Mrs. Scott Elliott outlining our budget and our priorities. Some things mandated that we know we got to have enough children coming into care.
What's this?
If we have to do the child support fees, those are things that we have to do. Then we looked at beyond that, our priority. So you have that information, how we prioritize. And then we have North Carolina Work Support Strategy Leadership Summit that will be held on April the 22nd and 23rd for staff, and you will see the information
Page 45.
that will be covered. And we have the 3 4 sections. We have 3 staff that would be attending it. Mr. Averett,
Mrs. Ravilla, and in adult Medicaid, Mrs. Teresa Sampson.
so there will be different breakout sessions, so they'll have an opportunity to attend all the breakout sessions and bring information back to us on how we can move forward. And then you have Dear North Carolina County Manager Services Director from the Secretary talking about NC Fast, things that we need to do from the county as well as the agency perspective. And those are some of the things that we have already talked about, bandwidth, computers and different things. So just wanted to share that with you.
One thing I had noticed, I wanted to go back to, was the letter that was accompanied the budget. It seemed more in detail than it had been in past years, at least from what I saw and what I recall. And from my standpoint, what this shows is a very close evaluation of the budget and needs, and in particular, why these things are needed. As I read through it, I had a better idea of why we were asking for some things, as I hope the reader of this will as well. So I wanted to bring that up. Let's see, I was going to ask one other question.
I have a question about
You going to say
I'll
something?
have, my comment would be, yeah, I think this was more detailed, and maybe we were the preliminary draft, but when we're sitting there as a board and we're looking at a budget meeting, the more information just like this, it'd been a lot easier had we had this in detail. This did go in some detail
Yeah.
more and was easier to explain. Obviously, you have to have that down there, probably would help us too.
that was a compliment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was in detail, and when I read this, it
Yeah.
made things
It
we
made
had
things a
heard,
lot clearer.
make sense. No, that was not a criticism, it was a compliment.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to go back to, I'm not sure about the procedure to do that, on the public policy. I just wanted to bring a couple of small things that I saw. One thing is that availability of the policy. And the things I was thinking is, one, have it on the website, but also maybe making it available that if a resident of Pitt County says, I need to come in, or I'd like to come in, that we would be able to mail that out. As well as the fact that at all our locations, if we have a copy of that somewhere where when people come in, and it could be, say, would you like to talk to us? And have these available, so if something comes up, they can get that and talk to
They
it.
can print it out if
No,
it's
I
on
mean,
their
it's not like if they go to get a service, like it, we were talking about across the river, that these should be there available where they can just get one off a tray or something like that,
Pick it up at the desk.
Yeah.
anywhere.
And also, don't all cases have to be recertified? I think in all programs, don't they, every so often? And so existing people who are on and might not go on the web thinking I'm on and I'm okay, then whenever their recertification comes up, as you would say, give them as just informational packet. Because it's they or they and some of their families, it might not be them direct, that most likely would want to speak at this type meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to have a motion to go into closed session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You have to read
We
it.
gotta read the thing.
You have to read it.
North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 regarding closed sessions. Section A, permitted purposes. It is the
Why don't you
policy
take
of
some
the
and put some
state
up at your-
that closed
if you're
sessions shall be held only when required to permit a public body to act in the public interest as permitted in this section. A public body may hold a closed session and exclude the public only when a closed session is required. Also, item number 1, to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes.
All right, her motion would be contingent on that
Okay. All those in
Statute.
favor?
requirement.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
We vote after she